figure has been chasing me my entire life. I've never really told this story out loud before, not because I don't want to, but because every time I think about it for too long, I get this overwhelming sensation that I'm being watched. My chest tightens, my head starts to ache, and I feel like if I say too much, something will notice. But I've listened to hundreds of true horror stories on YouTube over the years. Stories about shadow people, faceless figures, things that follow families for generations. And every single time, I wonder if the person telling the story feels the same dread I do while remembering it. Because this thing, whatever it is, has been with me for most of my life, and it's white. The strange part is that my earliest memory of it isn't even my own. The first time I ever heard about the white figure, I was around 6 or 7 years old. I didn't see it myself, not yet. Instead, my brothers came home from a sleepover at my cousin's house and told me what they had seen. I remember them sitting at the kitchen table, talking in low voices, like they didn't want anyone else to hear. When I asked what happened, they hesitated. Then one of them finally said there was something outside the house that night. They described it as tall, skinny, completely white, no facial features at all, just a smooth, pale surface where a face should have been. They said it was standing outside my cousin's window, watching them while they were trying to fall asleep. What made it worse was the location. My cousin's house has always had a reputation. Even back then, people said it was haunted. There were stories about footsteps when no one was home, doors opening on their own, and shadows that didn't belong to anyone. I could list dozens of unsettling incidents tied to that house alone. But this wasn't just another ghost story. My brothers were genuinely shaken. They weren't laughing, they weren't exaggerating, and they both described the same thing without changing details. That was the first time the white figure entered my life, and once it was there, it never really left. My first personal encounter happened a year or two later. I was about 8 years old, living in a trailer park with my family. The living room had long windows along one side, stretching almost from floor to ceiling. At night, those windows turned into dark mirrors that reflected the inside of the room, or worse, showed what was outside. One night, my brother and I decided to sleep in the living room. He was sitting on the couch, focused on a video game. I was nearby, using my laptop, half paying attention to whatever he was doing. At some point, I felt something shift. That's the only way I can describe it. I looked up toward the windows, and there it was, standing just outside. Tall, thin, white. It matched my brother's description perfectly. For a split second, I froze. My heart slammed against my chest, and my brain refused to process what I was seeing. Then I tried to focus on it, to really look at it. The moment I did, it was gone. Not walking away, not fading, just gone. I turned to my brother immediately and told him what I saw. He didn't laugh, he didn't question me, he didn't say I imagined it. He believed me. And that terrified me more than if he hadn't, because that meant I wasn't alone in seeing it. After that night, the white figure started appearing more often. But something had changed. Before, it just watched. Now, it chased. Every time I caught a glimpse of it, always out of the corner of my eye, it was moving toward me, running, closing distance, but never long enough for me to see it clearly. It always vanished before I could fully turn my head. I never saw it during the day, only at night, only when I was tired, vulnerable, or distracted, and always accompanied by the same feeling, like something had locked on to me. I never asked my brothers if they still saw it. Part of me was afraid of the answer. Another part of me was afraid that maybe it wasn't following them anymore. Maybe it had chosen me. Eventually, due to family problems, we moved out of the county I had lived in my entire life. and something strange happened. The white figure disappeared. For the first time in years, I didn't feel watched at night. I didn't see movement in the corners of my vision. I slept better, lived normally. I forgot about it completely. It was like that chapter of my life had been sealed shut until we moved back. Returning to my birth county felt nostalgic at first. Familiar streets, familiar houses, familiar unease. At first, nothing happened. Days passed, weeks, then months. But eventually, I saw it again. Only once or twice, and this time it was different. It was still running, but it was farther away, almost like it was struggling to reach me. The final and most terrifying encounter happened last year, shortly before my birthday. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, alone. The house was quiet. No TV, no music, just silence. Suddenly, I felt it, that crushing sensation of being watched. My body reacted before my mind did. My skin prickled, my stomach dropped, and without thinking, I looked toward the staircase. At the top of the stairs, it was there, peeking, watching me. It wasn't running, it wasn't hiding, it just stared. I couldn't see its face, but I felt its attention, like it was studying me, waiting. Then, slowly, it pulled its head back out of sight. And that was the last time I ever saw it. For context, I come from a family deeply connected to the paranormal. My aunt owns a collection of haunted dolls. My brothers have their own unexplained experiences. Strange things have always followed us. I've had other encounters too, but this one has lasted the longest. It followed me across years, across homes, across counties, and even now, as I write this, I feel it. The anxiety, the pressure, the headache building behind my eyes, that familiar sensation of being watched. Maybe it's gone, or maybe it's just waiting.
Story 2. Something I witnessed as a child that I've never been able to explain. I've gone back and forth for years about whether I should ever share this story publicly. Even now, as I put it into words, I feel uneasy, like revisiting this memory is opening a door that was meant to stay closed. That's why I'm keeping everything anonymous and intentionally vague. I don't want this tied back to me or my family in any way. Until now, I've only talked about this with a few close relatives. What happened took place when I was very young enough that I didn't fully understand the gravity of what I was witnessing, but old enough that the memory is burned into my mind with terrifying clarity. I can still picture the room, I can still remember the sounds, and more than anything, I can still remember the feeling. My family is Christian. We believe in God, prayer, and spiritual warfare. Back then, those ideas didn't mean much to me, but as I've grown older and reflected on what I saw that night, I've come to believe that what happened wasn't psychological, it was spiritual, and possibly demonic. At the time, we lived in a modest house where the living room and kitchen were connected in one open space. Everything felt close together, which made sounds travel easily. We had an old family desktop computer set up in the living room near the television, one of those bulky computers everyone seemed to have back then. One evening, both of my parents were home. My siblings and I were all in the same general area doing our own things. The atmosphere was normal, calm, safe. My oldest sister was sitting at the computer watching one of those pop-up scare videos that were popular years ago, the kind where everything seems harmless and then suddenly something flashes on the screen to scare you. She called me over and told me to watch. I remember getting startled when the scare popped up, then laughing it off. It didn't seem like a big deal. I walked away and went back to playing, already forgetting about it. A few moments later, my sister called another one of my sisters over, without warning her what was about to happen. I wasn't watching the screen directly this time. Instead, I heard a scream. Not a normal scream, not a playful one. It was a scream of pure terror. I turned around just in time to see my sister standing there, shaking uncontrollably. Her entire body was trembling. My mom rushed over instantly and grabbed her, asking what was wrong. My dad started yelling, demanding to know what she had been shown on the computer. Everything escalated in seconds. My sister's shaking got worse, and then, suddenly, it stopped. Her arms dropped to her sides. Her body went limp. I remember the look on my mom's face in that moment. I had never seen that expression before. Not fear, not panic, but something deeper, pure horror. My mom didn't hesitate. She called our pastor late at night and told him we needed to see him immediately. There was no discussion, no questioning, just urgency. While my dad went outside to get the car ready, my mom sent me into one of the bedrooms with my sister. She told me to stay with her. I sat down next to my sister on the bed and held her hand, trying to comfort her the only way I knew how. I softly told her over and over, "It's okay, everything's going to be okay." But something was wrong. Her hand was freezing, not just cold from fear or shock, but in a way that didn't feel alive. At the time, I couldn't fully understand it, but years later, after attending funerals and holding the hands of loved ones who had passed away, I realized something chilling. It felt exactly the same, like holding the hand of someone who was no longer there. While I was holding her hand, she suddenly turned her head, fast, violently. She looked directly at me. Her eyes were completely black, not dark brown, not shadowed, black. I remember feeling a crushing sense of dread wash over me, the overwhelming certainty that whatever I was looking at wasn't my sister, and yet somehow it still was. That moment has stayed with me my entire life. Even now, I struggle to describe the fear. It wasn't just terror, it was recognition, like my soul knew something was terribly wrong before my mind could process it. Now that I'm older, I truly believe that she was possessed in that moment. We drove to the church in silence. The ride felt endless. When we arrived, we went inside, and a teenager from the church tried to help. He gently reached out and touched my sister's hands. The moment she looked at him, his expression changed. He backed away immediately and went to get the pastor. That alone spoke volumes. We were brought into the main area of the church. My parents tried to reassure me, telling me everything was fine, but I knew they were lying. I sat behind my dad, gripping his shirt as the pastor and others gathered around my sister and began to pray. They weren't praying softly, they were rebuking. They commanded whatever was in her to leave in the name of God. That's when my sister started screaming. But it wasn't her voice. It was deep, distorted, unrecognizable. She kept screaming, "It hurts, it hurts." Later, she told me she wasn't in pain, that whatever was inside her was the one screaming. At some point, my dad picked me up and tried to block my view, telling me not to look. I looked anyway. I saw my sister twitching, crawling, moving in ways that didn't look human. Her body bent and jerked unnaturally. I wrapped my arms around my dad and buried my face in his shoulder, frozen in fear. After that night, no one talked about it. It was like it never happened. Years later, when I was older, I finally asked my sister what she remembered. She told me that when she watched the video, she felt something jump into her body. Everything went black. She felt like she was watching herself from outside her body, aware but trapped. She said she could see both herself and whatever had possessed her. She also told me something that still chills me. When she turned her head and looked at me that night, she was afraid that whatever was in her was going to go after me next. When the prayers ended, she said she suddenly felt like she snapped back into her body, exhausted, terrified, and afraid it would happen again.
To this day, she barely talks about it. She only says it was the worst experience of her life. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I only know what I saw, what I felt, and how clearly this memory has stayed with me. As a Christian, I believe this was something spiritual, something demonic, and it's something I will never be able to forget or fully explain.
Story 3. I think I was chased by something in a church crawl space. I've replayed this night in my head more times than I can count. Every detail, every sound, every wrong turn. And no matter how hard I try to explain it away, I always end up at the same conclusion. Something was down there with us, and it didn't want us to leave. 2 years ago, my church youth group took a week-long trip to a youth convention in Ohio. It was one of those trips everyone looks forward to. Late nights, loud vans, inside jokes that only make sense at 3 in the morning. Overall, it was fun, normal. Nothing about it felt strange or unsettling. Because the drive was so long, we stopped halfway there and again on the way back at a church where we stayed overnight. It was a big, older building, the kind that's been renovated a dozen times but still carries the weight of its age in the walls. On the way back, when we stopped there again, something unexpected happened. That church's youth group was also there. While everyone else was unpacking and settling in, a friend of mine and I started talking to one of the girls from their group. She seemed nice enough, a little weird in that casual, half-joking way people get when they're about to tell you something creepy. She told us the church had catacombs. That alone caught our attention. Then she mentioned something else, a crawl space. She said it ran through the walls of the church, not just a short maintenance space, but something long and twisting. According to her, the catacombs were sealed off completely and no one was allowed down there, but the crawl space, that was different. She even showed us the entrance. It was in the boiler room, about 4 feet up in the wall. Later that night, after she left, my friend and I couldn't stop thinking about it. We were both into urban exploring, abandoned buildings, forgotten places, things people weren't supposed to go into anymore. And this wasn't even abandoned. It was right there, inside a church, hidden in simple sight. So we did what any pair of curious, not too bright teenagers would do. We went back. The opening to the crawl space was roughly 4 feet by 4 feet. It was covered in about an inch of dust, thick enough that you could see where nothing had disturbed it in a long time. Black mold coated the edges, and inside, total darkness. No lights, no signs of recent activity. Because of the mold and dust, we pulled our shirts up over our mouths and noses. Neither of us could stand fully once we climbed inside, so we had to crouch as we moved forward. The walls felt tight, like they were slowly closing in. All we had for light were our phone flashlights. When we shined them ahead of us, we couldn't see the end. The girl had told us the crawl space didn't go outside the church, and the church itself wasn't that big, so at first we assumed the darkness was just playing our tricks. We kept going and going and going. After about 30 minutes of crouch walking, our legs were burning. We stopped and looked back. We couldn't see the entrance anymore. The boiler room light was on, we knew that, but the tunnel behind us swallowed our flashlight beam completely. That was the first moment I felt real anxiety. We stopped to catch our breath and debated turning back. Instead, we decided to keep going a little longer. A few minutes later, the crawl space turned. Then it turned again. By that point, we both realized something was wrong. There was no way we were still inside the church's perimeter. Either the girl had no idea how far this place actually went, or she lied. Eventually, we reached a cross-section. The space widened just enough for us to stand upright, but it narrowed again in both directions, forcing us to walk sideways if we wanted to continue. One direction ended almost immediately in a dead end. The other stretched onward into darkness. We chose the one that kept going. That path led us to an old, rusted gate. It looked ancient, like it hadn't been touched in decades. The metal was flaking. The bolt locking it in place was thick, heavy, and completely rusted shut. We tried to open it. It wouldn't budge. Beyond the gate was nothing but a massive drop into pitch-black nothingness. Our flashlights couldn't find the bottom. That was enough for us. We turned around. When we reached the cross-section again, something had changed. Two things, actually. The first was impossible. In the dead end we had checked earlier, where there was absolutely nothing, there was now a metal folding chair. It sat perfectly in the middle of the space, shiny, clean, no dust, no footprints. At first, we tried to rationalize it. Maybe we missed it. Maybe it was tucked behind something. But that didn't make sense. The entire crawl space was covered in dust. Everything we touched left marks, but the chair looked brand new, like it had just been placed there. My friend had been recording parts of our exploration on her phone. When we checked the footage later, we confirmed it. The chair hadn't been there before. That alone made my stomach drop. The second thing was worse. Around the base of the dead end, there was a gap between the wall and the floor, about 1.5 feet wide. It was completely black inside, like the darkness was thicker there. We stood frozen. Then we heard it, a long, drawn-out exhale. Not human. Right after that came a loud scrape, followed by a heavy metal clang. The chair. My friend screamed, I screamed, and we ran. We crouch ran through the tunnel as fast as our bodies would allow. Our lungs burned, our legs screamed. We could barely breathe through our shirts. Behind us, we heard movement, loud, scuffling sounds. They were getting closer, not echoing, not distant, chasing. When we finally reached the boiler room, my friend jumped out first. I held her phone and turned back one last time. I shined my flashlight down the tunnel, and I saw something moving towards us. It was big, too big to be an animal. I couldn't make out details, but it filled the tunnel in a way that didn't look right. We slammed out of the crawl space, locked the boiler room door, and ran. Back in the youth room, everyone was accounted for. No one had gone into the crawl space. Adults confirmed no one had been down there for years, and they confirmed something else. The crawl space only went through the church. But we knew better, because it went further, and something followed us out. To this day, I don't believe in ghosts, but I know what we experienced, and it still terrifies me.